Welcome, everybody, to the Lakers Lounge. I'm Anthony Irwin, today joined by friend of the show, friend of me personally, legitimately, I say this all the time to you, George, and I mean it every time I say it, legitimately one of the best people, maybe the best. I'd have to put that list together. Shouldn't that definitely wouldn't piss anybody off, but one
Yeah,
of the best people in this entire industry, George. Thank you very much for hopping on with me, given how busy you are. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for the kind words. The check is in the mail. I do like your new digs. I like this new artwork. I like everything that's going on here. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah. It was Vox was nice enough to send me along with some stuff that I can throw in the background. It's worked out all right. It's so kind of them to lay me off. Yeah, there's so much to talk about.
Oh
Like
my God.
it's insane. These
Yeah,
playoffs have been incredible.
yeah,
Yeah, it really feels like, and it sucks because now we're starting to see injuries kind of creep back into the picture,
yeah.
and that is becoming a an unavoidable part of the story here. But I really do think this first round has really put a showcase on from the league, reminding everybody, holy crap, this league is loaded. It is, because of how long the LeBrons and the Stephs of the world are playing into their careers and being productive to that extent. It's given the league, that present still, while you see guys like the Aaron Fox and the not Dillon Brooks, really kind of take the next step in their careers. It's been a fascinating run through the playoffs here so far. We'll talk about Lakers stuff here in a second, but like just in terms of the NBA in general, you're a Miami guy. What the hell is going on? How do we even explain Jimmy Butler? How do you even have that conversation?
Look, there are guys. I thought Bob Voulgaris tweeted this out yesterday, and it makes total sense, right? Where you have 82 game guys and 16 game guys.
Yeah.
And he's fine in the 82. Like he's good. Like he's
He had a really
legitimately
good year this year.
Yeah, he's legitimately a top 15 player in the 82. But when it comes to 16, he's like a legit like top 5 or 6 in this
It's
current
insane.
NBA. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's no longer a fluke, right? People are like, oh, the bubble, blah, blah, blah. But you've now seen it, right? I mean, they
Yeah.
were one game within one shot of getting to the finals last year and beating the Celtics. And I think you're seeing that again now. He's proving to people that he's just a really smart guy, right? Like he knows how to dissect the
Yeah.
game in real time. And for as many guys in the NBA that are freaks of nature, right? And like Giannis is like the perfect example.
Yeah.
And I think there are only like probably like a handful of guys in this current era where I think can think the game past most people. And
Hmm.
LeBron's certainly in that category, right? But I think Jimmy is in that category now where
Yeah.
he can think on the fly and dissect what's in front of him. And he's playing like multi-dimensional chess out there most nights when he's playing.
Multi-dimensional is a really important part of it. I think he gets people. Like I think he can read his opposition really well. And like you mentioned LeBron, and like LeBron's response to Dillon Brooks was really interesting because in the past, like Harrison pointed this out to me in Slack, in the past, LeBron has kind of done the verbal sparring outside of the game. He has participated in that with Deshaun Stevenson and, well, basically the entire city of Washington, D.C.
Right.
But
But he
like,
was really young back then. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
there was a different LeBron back then.
and
And by
like,
the way, there's that great story. Do you know the story about Jay-Z and all that or no?
I, I think I read a headline and briefly went through the piece on it, but go for it though.
But basically, Deshaun Stevenson, when he was saying all that stuff about LeBron and getting into it with LeBron, um, apparently Jay-Z, who's obviously tight with LeBron, was in the Bay Area,
Hmm.
and he apparently recorded a diss
No,
track, basically that included
Deshaun
Deshaun
Stevenson.
Stevenson in that particular conversation, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think that it was like wild, right? Like, and I forget which other artist he reached out to when he was in the Bay Area doing this concert when all this was going on. And I'm pretty sure Mark Spears of Anscape may have had this, or Justin Tinsley of
Yeah.
Anscape may have had the whole background story on it. But basically, Jay-Z reached out to some artist in the Bay Area and was like, hey, can I borrow your studio? And they're like, sure. And then they were like, can I borrow your track? Right? Like, just like the track for whatever the song was. And I'm trying, it was too short. It was Blow the Whistle.
Yep.
And he created kind of like, he used the I guess the beat of Blow the Whistle to create this diss track. And it played at this nightclub in DC in between games in that series. So all the players, both teams, were in this nightclub when this thing went off. Brian Windhorst told me that part of the story. And like, imagine, like this Jay-Z song is debuting at this nightclub and both teams are there. It's just a wild scene.
That's incredible. Like LeBron just having that in his back pocket is obscene. But
to my point is that was a young LeBron, because I was there for the Lance Stevenson stuff. And yeah, there was like occasional mention of Lance and just kind of LeBron rolling his eyes when Lance is blowing in his ear or whatever. Lance actually, if you recall in that series, put his damn fingers in his mouth during a play. Lance Stevenson, to me, of all the agitators, is probably the 1 seed just based on the antics, right?
Yeah, the amount of crazy.
Right, a different level. And by the way, you would know this because Lance played on the Lakers when LeBron came to the Lakers. LeBron wanted Lance on his team. So LeBron is not beyond mending these fences potentially. But yeah, I just think the Dillon Brooks stuff, to me, here's the part where I'm like, come on, dude, seriously? You're not talking to the media again for the second straight game? Like, this is not what this needs to be. And I've said this all along. I've been a big fan of what Memphis has been doing for years. Like, for years, I've been saying they're going to be a team that's going to be knocking on this door. But I think what they're missing is like another veteran player. And I know people look at, well, what about Steven Adams? I know he looks like he's 35, but he's like in his 20s still.
Yeah.
He's been in this league for a long time, but he's still in his 20s. And they had Danny Green, but Danny wasn't playing, right? And not everybody's Udonis Haslem, right? Where they cannot play and have an impact in the locker room. They need a veteran guy on that roster to help with some of the immaturity stuff. And, they're not alone. Look, I know Giannis is a little dinged up, but I didn't love Giannis not speaking after the game yesterday either. So I'm not just singling out Memphis. But yeah, LeBron has been through this stuff before. And I think he threw Dillon off his game, particularly that game 3, when he approached him pregame before the tip. I think that totally took Dillon off his game.
Well, that's the thing, though, is that, like, Jimmy Butler, I think, can really sense it, has a really good feel for, these guys are like one bucket away from just completely caving.
Right.
Like, we can, this thing, right now we're on like a 7 or 8 point run here. We're like 3 buckets away from blowing this thing wide open. And he has a incredibly good sense of human nature in that regard. And I think LeBron, I think he broke Dillon Brooks. I think he's completely and I think like Lakers fans deserve a little bit of credit for this too. They showed up. I mean, like for a fan base that is known for showing up late and stuff like that.
No, they were great. I was there last night and I watched it, game 3 pop through the screen. But to your point, right, Jimmy knows how to size up his competition, right? Like, he fouled out Chris Middleton in a really important part late in that game yesterday. And LeBron knows, he said it, not my first rodeo, right? I know what I'm doing in these scenarios. He does. Having that experience and being able to play the mind games both in real time on the floor and off the floor, I think is an art that very few guys have. And those two guys, while I wouldn't always put them on the same level, I think when it comes to this time of year, they have some similarities. I don't think there's any question.
And then like the last part of it is, I think both guys really know how, their teammates around them are going to respond to various things that they do. The way that LeBron approached game 3 to me really sticks out, where for the most part in the series, he has really kind of wanted to let D'Angelo Russell see if he can get going, let Austin Reeves get some experience on the job and really kind of back off or whatever. But in game 3, he came out and it reminded me a lot of that game 6 against Boston, where you just looked in his eyes and he's like, oh no. and you combine that. And there was a scene actually in the Showtime show where Dr. J, kind of psychs out Magic Johnson. He's super nice to him. Then he goes out and kicks his ass.
Yeah.
And Magic just has no idea how to respond to any of that stuff.
Right.
And I think like Dillon Brooks, like he says what he says. He's anticipating, like, we all know when we say something and you have to pass that person in the hallway. You're like, man, do I make eye contact? Do I act like I didn't say the thing? Do I try to apologize for saying the thing? Do I try to whatever? And you could just kind of see it. Like LeBron walks onto the court and Dillon Brooks looks over and has a double take. And then LeBron brings him over and they have their exchange. And then LeBron promptly goes out and immediately, not casually over the course of a game, but immediately in that game proceeds to kick Dillon Brooks' ass. And yeah, I really think the Lakers responded really well to that. I thought the Lakers really responded well to LeBron's quotes where he's like, look, the game's always been won between those four lines out there, when he knows that's not really true. There is a big part of the extracurricular stuff. And also, I know this is probably in the minority and people took it as, well, some of it is me kind of laughing at Dillon Brooks. Can't help myself. But I also was happy that they didn't suspend Brooks. I want more of this stuff. This, so long as it isn't dirty, obviously, that's where it crosses the line. When you're getting into territory where guys might get hurt, that's obviously where suspensions need to take place. But, there's some talking and in this case, some an odd number of nut shots from the Memphis Grizzlies. That kind of stuff, though, that extra fire, that feeds into what we watch sports for. So, right. I said on the lowdown a couple nights ago that I'm happy that Brooks didn't get suspended. I want more of that stuff in it. And, I think we're really kind of seeing the start of what could potentially be a kind of shift where guys are willing to acknowledge, yeah, this team doesn't like that team. There's the Bay rivalry. Yeah, it's really cool. Have you noticed that as well?
Yeah, no question about it. And, look, by the way, LeBron has been on the other side of this too, where if you recall during the 2011 finals, which was his worst playoff series ever, right? Yeah.
Heatles.
Him and Dwayne Wade, right? We're doing the cough thing as they were walking into the arena.
Yep.
Dirk was allegedly sick at the time, and he felt the wrath on the other side, right? Dirk cooked them in that series. And I still think it's one of the greatest single finals performances ever because of what
from
the
JJ Barea
and who he was going against. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like what Dirk did there,
that
think
was
about
insane.
Dirk beating Dwayne, LeBron, and Chris in their prime. I get that the rest of the team was not built as well as it could have been. Well, actually, I'm not going to say that either because that first year was always going to be the worst year because they didn't have all the
exceptions
abilities to add all these guys they did later, right? Shane Battier and Ray Allen, etc. But to me that's an incredible feat. And LeBron felt the wrath on the other side, so he's been on both sides of this, where he has been the guy dealing with the Deshaun Stevenson or the Lance Stevenson, or the guy who got beat by the guy he was trying to kind of clown a little bit, right? And was the instigator in that particular scenario. So I do think, though, that adds to the luster, right, of what makes these games interesting. It's why we love the NBA. It's not that we don't love the basketball, because we certainly love the basketball. I think people like you and me and a lot of people who work in this space love the basketball, right? The X's and O's part of it. The game within the game on the floor. We just talked about LeBron and Jimmy Butler being able to think the game through in real time. But the added benefit is the fact that you have the drama, which has always existed in the NBA. And I think only augments how much people enjoy these moments. And it was funny. I was at I almost said Staples Center, at Crypto.com Arena yesterday. Yeah. And I'm sitting there kind of taking it all in. And I'm just like, man, this is fun. This is so much fun. And I know last year we got a taste of it in the NBA, although the Lakers were not involved. But I think that not having the Lakers, I think, even though the numbers were good for the first two rounds, even without the Lakers, I think that having the Lakers involved and having the Knicks involved, right? I think just adds a different layer to it. And the fact is, this time of year is so much fun. And when you're in these arenas and they're popping the way they were popping, like crypto has the last 2 games, like Miami was last night with Jimmy Butler, like Sacramento was the first couple of games in that series, particularly the first one after 16 years of not making the playoffs, right? Golden State is always popping, right? The Garden has been popping, right? Like those moments, we kind of take them for granted, and we shouldn't, especially after what we've endured the last couple of years where, we had the bubble, and then we had, even though there was great basketball in the bubble, like maybe the highest level basketball we've ever seen, to be honest, in in the playoffs, but not having the fans
not quite
there,
the same.
Not the same. And then the year after that, right? Either limited fans or no fans. It was weird. But now these last 2 seasons, but particularly this one, because the Lakers are involved, because the Knicks are involved, because we're getting this high level play and teams that haven't been involved maybe in a while, I think it's just, this is the time where you just, as an NBA fan, whether you're there at the arena, particularly if you're there at the arena, but if you're just watching it and you can sense this stuff pop through the TV screen, just sit back and take it in and enjoy those moments, man, because this is what we live for, right? The 82
Absolutely.
is a grind, but these few months are what we live for.
Yeah, it's funny, the 82 games, they're trying to find a way to get people to, tentpole events, right? Christmas Day and Martin Luther King Day and various, and finally they're going to add this midseason tournament. And like I would say that in terms of spectacle, like there's no beating football, right? You have 100,000 people in those arenas, and that's insane.
Right. And
but like
scarcity, it's the law of economics, right? Scarcity where you have every game means more,
But basketball to me, and like when you want to talk, just drawn out drama, baseball moves so slow that you can feel every moment. But basketball to me is the best combination of the two things, where these guys are right up close and personal. You can see every single, like it was funny last night, LeBron takes his second charge from Jaw, and he gets up and he kind of looks up at the screen, and you can see on his face like, oh my God, I used to move like that.
Yeah.
And like, it's cool to be able, like basketball offers you that opportunity to be able to see that stuff and see the way that these guys interact between plays and during plays and stuff. And yeah, like these playoffs have been so incredible in that regard. And, I'm happy that Dillon Brooks doesn't get suspended, and I'm happy that Joel Embiid doesn't get ejected or suspended, because.
And by the way, they shouldn't have. It was adjudicated fine. Although the Embiid one probably should have been more. I mean, I would have been okay if Embiid would have been tossed in that scenario in that game, but I think suspension, like the Draymond thing happened. I'm a firm believer of this. Now, people can say I'm wrong, but I believe it's because he antagonized the crowd, and both the commissioner was also there.
Commissioner's there, yeah.
I think it was adjudicated properly in real time, I would not have suspended Draymond. But I think that stuff lends to what happened. And I don't think that, Dillon Brooks did any of that or whatever. So I'm with you. Like, it just, to me, the Draymond thing is a little bit of an outlier.
Yeah, you can't kick the trash can in front of the principal. Like,
right.
you're gonna get some extra detention for that. But I do think, though, like, look, every part of the way that the NBA has adjudicated extracurricular activity on the court has been, taken out to the nth degree because of the malice at the palace, right? There's been there was an overcorrection, I think, over time, where guys, if you leave the bench, you are suspended a game and that stuff. And it's just like, we as a society, like we like that extra stuff. We like that extra little bit of violence. We like feeling like at any moment things can pop off, and you might see these guys really show how they feel about each other. Right. And to try to sterilize it in the way that the league has, I think has kind of taken away some of that. And I think getting back to it now, where you're seeing more of it, where you're seeing how LeBron legitimately feels about, Dillon Brooks in Game 3, where he starts off right away, and then like LeBron, look, I think in the moment he would have yelled out like that on the and one that he has in overtime to basically put it away. He would have yelled like that. But the pop that you got from the crowd, the fact that he drove by Dillon Brooks after Dillon Brooks says LeBron doesn't have a left hand, LeBron goes left on him and gets that and one. Like that kind of stuff is what we watch basketball in particular for, because you can see all that happen in real time.
Yeah, and by the way, not to go too far off on a tangent, the NBA was terrified after Malice at the Palace,
Oh yeah.
and understandably so, because you got to trust everyone involved. You got to trust the players, but more importantly, in that scenario, you got to trust the consumers, right? Like
Yeah.
in some ways too. And I think that there was this sense of they didn't trust either, right, for a
Yeah.
stretch. And I think we're getting back to that slowly but surely. But I still think in the back of their mind, there is this terrified feeling of having lived through that. And when you live through a trauma like that, most leagues, the NBA, I don't have to go down the history of the NBA, but if you go down that rabbit hole, you'll understand why they were terrified of it. And still in the back of their mind, having lived through it and lived through the previous iterations of the NBA, just everything the NBA had to do to scratch and claw its way to get to this mountaintop that it's gotten to be part of the big sports landscape, or be part of the equation in the big sports landscape here in this country and in the world for that matter.
Yeah.
I get why they would have some trepidation and some fear, but I do think they had gotten to a level where there is more trust, certainly in their players, in the Players Association, and I think to some extent in the security at these arenas, more so than they had previously. So I think I get them having that. But yeah, I think we're slowly but surely getting there. And I think they understand the drama matters. Like they do. And by the way, suspending guys sometimes adds to the drama. I'm not saying it's done for those reasons. This isn't the WWE. It's not scripted. But I do think that, to your point, if you kick the trash can in front of the principal, there's going to be more ramifications to deal with. And that just lends to the drama and the product.
Yep. All right, let's quickly talk. I want to look at the Lakers here. I have been saying basically since the deadline that this is a team that I feel can win, not will, but can get to the finals and can win a championship. I've thought that since they turned Russ, Pat Bev, and Kendrick Nunn into a bunch of wings and some athleticism, some shooting. D'Angelo Russell brings some ball handling as well. I've thought that this is a team that can go on a bit of a run in the playoffs. It looks like they're going to win at least this one series. I like how they match up against either the Warriors or Sacramento.
Yep.
And then if they play, Denver in the conference finals, that's a team that you've always kind of felt like the Lakers have a bit of a mental edge on them. And then all of a sudden you're in the finals, potentially against Boston, which is kind of insane. But like, I have thought that, this feels like a team that can go on a bit of a run. It looks like that's going to be the case. I'm curious, like you've watched LeBron incredibly closely here, and the way that he has approached this series, I know that some Lakers fans are a little frustrated because and I at times feel a little frustrated too, because he has been more passive throughout this series. But I've been thinking about it a lot, and I feel like that's him saying, look, we can get Memphis here, and he understands how much effort it's going to take to win any game on any given night. And I think he's kind of looking at this as an opportunity to be like, all right, let's just get through this series. I'm going to save my legs as much as possible, because then we have probably Golden State, and then we have another series after that, and then you have the finals. But his approach to this series has given me a weird amount of confidence that he sees what the Lakers are capable of too. So, like from your perspective, how have you read his approach to this series thus far?
I think he always eases himself into a series, and I think that he is in this situation where he knows what he's going up against, right? It's what we were talking about at the beginning of this podcast, where he can think through the game in real time, and that also means thinking through the stuff in between the games, right? He knows his body as well as anyone. He knows what he can do. And by the way, I think he understands his limitations at 38 years old too, right? Yeah. Like he's trying to push through this, right? The whole narrative of beating Father Time, the commercials, etc. I think that's part of it. But he also
those aren't running anymore, oddly enough.
Yeah, they're not. But he does know what he can do. Like LeBron in game 3 in the fourth quarter, when the Grizzlies are making their push, he got swatted at the rim. You know what I'm saying? Like that doesn't happen a couple years ago. You know what I mean? And I think he understands. but he didn't get like frustrated. He ran right back, right, and just like got himself back in the play. And I think he understands that, right? He didn't complain to the refs. He knew, hey, clean block, playoff
He
time,
caught
got
the
to run
ball.
back, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's some of that is understanding that too, is whatever his limitations are. And I mean, think about it. At 38 years old and 115 days, he's the oldest player to get a 2020 game in the
Yeah.
regular season or the playoffs. Like, he is doing things when they're necessary. And I've always said this about the playoffs. He's always been an efficiency machine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of what time of year it's been. But I've always said that regardless of how efficient he is, the playoffs are not about efficiency. The playoffs are about getting W's. And it doesn't
Yeah.
matter how ugly it is, as long as it's effective, who gives a rat's ass how
Yeah.
ugly it may look? And I think that I trust him implicitly to be able to do what he thinks is best in a given series. Um, some people will. I think from game to game, we see how much fan is short for fanatic, where people are like, he needs to put the foot on the gas more. But it's weird because those are probably also the same people that are saying, well, Anthony Davis needs to be the best player on this team for them to win a championship, right? So it's
Yeah.
like you want your cake and eat it too. You can't have it both ways. But I
Yeah.
do think LeBron just understands himself and his game, especially now, more so than ever. He's kind of like Neo in the Matrix. In a way where like he sees the things coming before they come, right? Again,
Yep.
back to the multi-dimensional chess. So I think there's that. And I think he's going to do what's necessary in a game because of the way he's able to read it. For example, Anthony Davis did not have a great game yesterday, right? Like
Again.
there, and I get it. And I know Charles and those guys and Shaq were talking about this in the post game yesterday about how like, they don't get how one game he's on and one game he's off or whatever. But AD, say what you want, defensively was awesome yesterday. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think they shot, I'd have to look up, I'm trying to look up the numbers here on my phone real quick. But I'm pretty sure the Grizzlies were like 3 of 16 or something like that on shots that he contested. So to me, Anthony Davis, the one thing you're always going to get, and this is what Kenny Smith was saying yesterday in the post game. And I caught it because I was streaming it in my car when I left the arena. Where he's like, what you're always going to get with him defensively. That's always been the case with him going back to his Kentucky days. But offense at times have been hit or miss, right? And when he was on the Pelicans is different because he was the guy, right? Like he didn't have good enough players around him at that time. Like they needed him to score 40 to just be in every game, particularly in their limited amount of opportunities in the playoffs. But yeah, I think that there's that. I think there's a sense of LeBron understanding what each individual guy is certainly capable of and being able to react in real time to what they're producing on a given night.
Yeah, I also think he's feeling out. All right, who can I trust in this moment, right? Because this is the first time he's in this spot with these guys, and like Raj and I were kind of marveling at last night. Austin Reeves is the first guy that LeBron has kind of backed off to see what he has since Kyrie, and the only other point guard that LeBron has approached the game like that with, and that's been fascinating to watch too, because all of these guys have been together for a couple months, and LeBron missed a month of those couple months, so they're all trying to figure this out. They're trying to build this plane in midair, and the fact that they're able to be up 3-1 while they do that has been pretty. It gives me quite a bit of confidence of what they're capable of doing, not just this summer or this postseason run, but certainly heading into next year as well. All right, before we get you out of here, you are doing a ton at ESPN that I wanted to help you plug. You're doing ESPN Daily now, which is a really cool and immersive gig. You're still doing your sideline stuff too. I'm just gonna get out of your way and let you tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me in a bunch of places. If you want to hear Lakers talk on a regular basis, you can find me on my ESPN Los Angeles radio show. It's Afternoon Drive in Los Angeles on 7:10 a.m. ESPN LA. You can also podcast that as well. Every hour is podcasted. Sometimes the shows are short because we're the Lakers flagship, so we'll lead into the pregame for that and then the games. But I would say that This time of year, we are doing 95% Lakers and then 5% everything else. So it's definitely a good place to get more Lakers content and takes. And honestly, because I'm a basketball guy, that's generally the case. The overwhelming majority of what we're doing there is going to be Lakers content. There's also some silliness and goofiness in there in between, which we like to do. We like to have some fun on the show.
I think that just happens naturally with Scott Kaplan too.
Yeah,
like that's just, it's going to happen.
So there you can find me there, Sedano and Cap. Find the podcast wherever you find podcasts. Subscribe, rate, and review. Do all that stuff. ESPN Daily I've been a guest host lately. Check that out. A lot of good content on there. It's more of a magazine show. A lot of interviews, kind of cool, I think, too, in a different way to kind of use different muscles than I'm used to.
Yeah.
And then play-by-play on ESPN Radio, NBA sidelines on the play-by-play is NBA, college football, and NFL on ESPN Radio, and then NBA sidelines on TV. I'm pretty much everywhere. Yeah, and Around the Horn. You can catch me on Around the Horn too. I'm there, and that's podcasted too, because basically everything is podcasted now.
I feel like I have to, like, I'm just gonna go find another job to do just so that I can like come anywhere near that list, just anywhere in that vicinity. You're killing it, George. Thank you very much for hopping on, man. I appreciate it, given how busy I know that you are. Always fun to catch up, and let's do it again soon.
All right, brother. Thanks for having me. We'll talk soon.